So I'm here in downtown Chicago, and just a little story. A firm flew me out to California to interview for a position. And long story short, what they did was to take me out to lunch. Now, when they went out to lunch, I went out with the male recruiter, and then he took along with her a very attractive single female from the firm. And that very attractive single female ate lunch with us. Now, he brought up conversation. He wanted to see my etiquette at lunch and everything, because I'm in a sales role and I'm to be taking people out to lunch. How many firms, when they hire financial planners, do they take them out to lunch or take them out to a dinner and see how they interact at lunch or dinner before they hire them, to see if they have any faux pas? But they don't do that. They look at the resume and then they hire them from college, but they don't take them out to a meal to see what they're like. Law firms do this. David, when he got hired at Arthur Andersen, they took him out and wanted to see how he interacted. Now, they realized he needed refinement, and they did, and they had a whole etiquette course in that, because he was going to go to more sophisticated meals with clients. So he had to know how to use the utensils, which wine glass, where's the butter plate, what's the etiquette. And so Arthur Andersen would teach their auditors and consultants proper etiquette. And David told me this, and they had a training class. All the new employees went through etiquette training because they're going to be interacting at meals and that with employees as they're auditing the office and so on. A lot of firms bring in food and they eat and they interact with employees and so on, like Jen used to. She would eat and they bring in lunch trays and that, and she would eat with the employees as she's programming the computers, and she would interact with them. And I taught Jen even finer etiquette. Oh yeah, I taught her brother and sister as well. But the whole point is, none of these firms take you out when you're in a sales role and you're going to interact with clientele. And so they don't see. So if you have refinement that needs that and everything, that's fine. How do you talk? What stories? Like, get them at a table. Like at Baja Beach Club, they made us tell jokes to each other. We had to stand up and tell a joke. They never told us this. This is off the cuff. They wanted to see what our true personality was like. So we weren't prepared. And I'm like, joke. I had to think of a joke, and I had a joke, and so did John. And we had to get up and tell a joke, and people did laugh, and I delivered it. Then we had to get up on stage and do certain things. And so it was to see if we were outgoing, if we can be funny, if we can interact with people with proper personality. So, but how many times you're hiring a cop? So what? They go through the academy. Do they have what it means? They're a beat cop. They're going to be interacting with the citizens, or a security guard. They're interacting with people. Do they have the right etiquette? Do they have the ability to have these conversations like your doorman? Do they carry the right form of conversations? Do they have the right type of etiquette? Because they're going to be interacting with people from the building. And that's how people feel. So, how they rub them. So they don't do this. But now in medical school, they require bedside training. And they should do it in residency as well, bedside training. But all medical schools now require you have to take a course on etiquette, patient etiquette. And so they put you in a room with the patient and they watch your etiquette and they train you. You go to classroom and they teach you and educate you on certain etiquette for certain. You're going to have to tell people good news, bad news, certain things. And they teach you this etiquette, how to break the news properly when it's negative, how to deliver the good news. Even when it's good news, how to deliver it appropriately. Like my doctor, McGrath, every time my blood work came in, my two doctors, new ones, they didn't do this. But McGrath, she was from South Africa, and she comes from a line of physicians. She was awesome. And she would call me. And she's like, your blood work came in, and let me go over the results. And I'm going to go over it line by line. And this is where you stand in these different ranges. And then she would say, okay, we're over the results. If you have any questions, you can stop me. But she would go over them. And then she'd say, okay, you need to work on these certain things. And she'd tell me, you got to get down your cholesterol, or you got to get down your sugars. And we need to do certain things to address them. But she would make a personal phone call to me, and she would explain the results to me and then answer any questions. And my doctors, they don't do any of that now. And I was sad that she moved out of the practice to another practice because she could, hire reimbursements at the other practice. So she wasn't taking her clients with her. She left me behind. She didn't tell me where she was going. I just knew she was leaving, and I transferred doctors. And then I finally found her in 2000. But then she gave me this huge paperwork instead of just giving me a form to transfer my medical records. Do you know that? Dentists and doctors, there's a form they can send you, and you fill out the form just like we do in insurance. It's the same thing. I did it at Loyola when I got this one doctor who was an Arab female, and she asked me, I'm like, why don't I just transfer my records to you? There's a transfer form, right? And we could have done that before my appointment. You know that, right? I was just informing her. I wasn't sarcastic. And then I went out and I filled out the form and had my medical records transferred over to Loyola from Advocate. But before you go to the dentist and everything, you can just have the records transferred from the other dentist to you. You fill out the form and they transfer over the records. And all they have to do is update. So they transfer, they scan in the records. And if you know what editable PDF is, so now you have even better where the AI can read it, and it reads what category it is. Their charts might be different than yours, but it reads it, interprets it, and then puts it in the box, and somebody has to go over it and check it really quick. But it takes a minute to check it. They just go down, boom, 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 boom. They put it in the right category? Yes. So they scan it, and then the system reads it. That's what editable PDF, it reads it, and then transfers it into your categories. And if it has a question, it asks you. This category might not exist on your chart. And it says, category not available, or cannot interpret this question. And yes, it might be cannot read writing, because some doctors, they don't write legible, so they make doctors type now, like McGrath typed everything in. They don't want them handwriting, they want them typing. Now, they can do copy talk in a doctor's office. None of them do, but they can. They can pick up the phone like I'm doing on video, do copy talk. Copy talk takes it voice to text, and then it takes it and puts it in the right categories. So the doctor can say blank and start. So you teach the doctor the script. And it says glucose, comments. And Michael has, elevated glucose levels in his blood work, and it's within this range, and we've taken this course of action. And then she says, end. Then next category, cholesterol. And then she says, Michael has elevated cholesterol, and we provide Lipitor at 10 milligrams per se. And it's on a daily basis, taking it in the morning. Because you're going to eat things throughout the day, so you want the medication in the morning to cut the cholesterol that you're going to consume. So anyways, and then she says next category, hypertension or whatever it may be, or ankle sprain. And it says ankle sprain. Diagnosed, there is a torn Achilles, partially torn Achilles with it, inflamed, and treatment and so on, and then it just fills it in. So they have to put it in correctly, but it fills it in and takes it. So you just have to teach them. And they can use Copy Talk. We use it in financial planning. Police can use Copy Talk to fill out all their records. So all they do is read the category and say, number one, criminal activity. Number two, criminal activity, jaywalking. Number two, description of criminal activity. Was at the corner of Dearborn and North Avenue, and individual crossed on a 45-degree angle going from the northeast corner to the southwest corner at the intersection Dearborn and so on, describing the criminal action. And then next, ticket or warning. And they say a warning was issued to the individual. No other warnings were in the system. And so issuing a first warning, told him next will be a ticket if he's caught jaywalking a second time. And so issued the ticket on blank blank, or issued the warning on blank blank. And so they can do this. And scumbags tailgating. So, but anyways, they can do these things, but they don't teach people these things. And Copy Talk can be used in many fields, even Copy Talk in the legal field and so on. So it has a far-ranging, it's a voice-to-text system, but they don't teach us this in our client Copy Talk system. Everything I did is advanced Copy Talk, mine. And so you teach the financial planner, the compliance has the question with the client notes, which they don't do, but they need to lay them out. So, who are the client? Martha Smith and Jonathan Smith. And they lay out the boxes, the time and date. Met them on February 22nd, 1991 at their residence at blank, blank, blank at 12 noon. So the financial planner just has the sheet in front of them, which is blank, and it can be on the phone itself, and they just move from category to category. The phone says, and the Copy Talk can say next category. They don't even have to see the sheet. It says next category or continue on with adding more information in this category. So it can just have it and tell you the categories. Or they can have a sheet and see the categories, or they can both. They can tell them the categories and they can see the categories. And they can say back up the category number 2. And they, okay, back to category number 2. Time and date when met the client. Correct, it wasn't 12 noon. It was 1 p.m. Central Time. So, and then move back to remaining category. And so on. But the thing is, the system can just guide you through. Like with a doctor, it can just guide them through, or a police officer. And then it fills in all the paperwork, and all they have to do, once it's completed, it says, please scan submission. And they scan the submission, look it over. It says preview. It says, please preview the submission. And they scroll down, look it over. And if everything is okay, hit submit. If not, hit edit. And then scroll to category and tap on category to highlight, to edit that category. And then scroll down, hit preview again, and look and make sure it took, the edit took, because maybe there's a lag or you lost Wi-Fi or something and the edit didn't take. So you hit preview again, and if everything's correct, then you hit submit and it sends it. So this can be very easy. You can do this with traders and trades with compliance, because after a trade, they got to make a note. And so you can get Synergy, which what Vanguard uses, and Copy Talk can go into there. And once they're done, it comes on and they can make notes about the client. Blank, blank, blank. And it already has the phone number and so on. And if it's somebody they don't know, caller ID shows it, and it says, is this confirmed that you talked to Mr. Smith Jones at blank, 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 because our caller ID should have come up. And the caller ID logs it and verifies. And when they come on the screen, it says recognize phone number, which when I call Bank of America, it recognizes my phone number. That's one part of the security, calling from a recognized phone number. But if somebody calls in and it says calling from an unrecognized phone number, and a caller ID comes in and they're like, I'm Mr. Smith, my social security number is blank, 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 and so on, and you have on the screen unrecognized phone number. And so it says enhance questions needed to be completed before authorization is approved. So, Mr. Smith, since you have notes, do you remember last time you called in? What in particular did you want us to do for you? They won't know that. They called in. And so they don't know what the person called about. It could have been to send out forms. They have forms, but they don't know the question. You have the voice right there. It's on the account, the little voice tag. It has it, and it has it in text, and it says, gives it a summary. Called in about a IRA conversion form. So, Mr. Smith, what did you call in about? I called in to talk about a mutual fund. Okay. And then what's it say? Ask second question. Mr. Smith, what else did you call in about? And blank, blank. And he says, and it says that recharacterization they called about, it was submitted, and he called in to confirm that we received it. And I'm like, called in about the PrimeCat fund. And it says, Mr. Smith, please hold. And I'll get back to you in 1 second, please. And it goes into queue. They put the client on hold, and they transfer the number to security. Mr. Smith, I'm transferring you over to Joan, and Joan is going to assist you from here. And they transfer the account with the number and everything over, because we could do it. We transfer everything over. And we transfer it over to the security officer. And they're like, hi, Mr. Smith, you're with Mr. Jones. You asked some security questions and so on and so forth. And how can I help you with your account today? And I like to do blank, blank, blank. And they keep them on because this is evidence. And they go through like they're going to make a transaction on the account. And they document that they called in, and they give the rest of the stuff, address, social security number, and so on. And you're like, okay, and you're going to do this transaction, and so on, and so on. And, yep, okay. And they document it all, and like, okay, Mr. Smith, the transaction has been fulfilled, and we'll get back to you soon. Okay, when can I expect it? In the next couple days, Mr. Smith. Okay. And then the security officer gets off and calls the client's phone number. And it says, is this Mr. Smith? Yes, this is Mr. Smith. Did you just call in to Vanguard and request a money transfer? No. Or yes, it could be a stolen phone. Yes. Okay. Then you have to go through further security with them. Because we got some things messed up on the form and we couldn't complete this, so can we further verify? And so on, but they can verify that account they gave for the transfer to go to if they didn't have it set up and so on. There's a bunch of other things. But somebody could have stolen the phone or broke in and using their phone and so on, but it said unrecognized number, right? So it's not his phone. But anyways, they call him up and it's like, no, I didn't call in and so on. Okay, Mr. Smith, well, we had some fraudulent activity. Your account has been flagged. And we're turning over the phone number plus the recording and everything to the police. And so Vanguard's security reaches out to the detectives. And this is the bad thing about cell phone numbers now. You can have any cell phone number from anywhere. Before, if you were in Chicago, you had to have a 312 number. Or eventually you had 312 or 773. And anyone in the burbs had an 847 number. But now you can be in Boston or anywhere and have a 312 number. And you can request these numbers or these area codes, and people take their number with them and they move and the number goes with them. And now they're in Chicago, but they still have they still have, say, a Boston area code. So you don't know where that person is. So what does the cell phone carrier? You give them the number. And they can go back through the number and tell you what towers the number pinged off of. Any phone call The cell phone carriers know what towers it went through. They can tell you the source. They already know in their system. It has the whole where it entered from the tower, what tower it entered to. Truly, nothing like they bounce it off of here and there. They know what tower it went through. And so they know where the call originated from. So T-Mobile, whatever, they can tell you where any phone call originated from. Because they know the tower the call goes through. It's all part of the algorithm. It identifies the tower or the logistics of the phone call. That's what the phone number has to go through. Towers, you're calling a number and it finds the other number. It's all an algorithm, just like searching on the web. And so it knows what tower it went through. And so you give it to the police, and then the police call up T-Mobile. They log the number in and see what phone system it came up on. And it came up as a T-Mobile number. And they say, we want to know the origins of this number. And they're like, well, we can't give you that for privacy. Well, we have documentation that this client called in, or this phone number called in on an account, and it's not the client's phone. And it wasn't the client. He's testifying it wasn't him that called in on the account. And we'll have a judge online, and he can give them, truly, when they turn over the cops, the detectives should have the warrant ready right away. Judges are on standby 24 hours a day. So we have the warrant. We want to know where this phone call originated from. And they're like, it's a Starbucks. It originated from a tower on Roosevelt in Michigan. They don't know exactly, but they can triangulate. And once they do that, they're like, okay, where is that current cell phone? And they can tell you because they have triangulation. They tell you, now the cell phone is at Jackson and Michigan Avenue. Okay. And that's in Chicago. And this is the Boston police say talking. Okay. They call over to stay on the line T-Mobile because they're talking to their engineers. Stay on the line T-Mobile engineer. And we're going to do a 3-way call with the Chicago PD. And they say, we have this situation going on. They put them on hold, mute them, put them on hold. They talk to the Chicago PD, tell them about the situation. Now we're going to bring you on with the T-Mobile engineer, and we want you to dispatch somebody to pick this person up. And they say, okay, Chicago PD, you're on with the T-Mobile engineer, and they're triangulating the phone, and they're telling you where the phone is. Okay, where's the phone right now? Okay, that's the 13th precinct. We're going ahead and dispatching a unit right now. The phone is moving down Michigan Avenue southbound, just crossing over Jackson, say, and it is headed southbound. And now we're going to patch the engineer in, and now it's a 4-way call with the squad car. And the engineer is going to give the squad car turn-by-turn location. Now, it would be nice if T-Mobile had a picture of every client, right? They're supposed to take their driver's license, state ID, or passport. They need a picture of them. We're sending over what is your number or email, and we'll send over the client profile to you. And T-Mobile sends it over to the email, sends it over to the police officer who's in the station or in the call center, the detective that's taking it, and they forward it to the police car. And they're like, here you go, here's the profile with the photo they have on file. they're like, okay, yep, see that guy standing right over here? We're initiating stop right now. Mr. John Doe, this is the Chicago Police Department. Please stand still. We need to talk to you. Please do not run. Please do not evade. And they get out of the car and they interact and they bring them into the station for further questioning. So again, this can all be done now. And what do we work with? Interpol. Like I got calls from Jamaica, say. I caught them on Google Fraud, looked them up, and the lady was in the Caribbean. And asked the Lisa Madigan, and I talked to her staff. There are lots of phone calls coming in doing scams. They weren't in Africa. They were coming from the Caribbean, the phone calls. They were in the Bahamas, Jamaica, or somewhere in the Caribbean. But that's why you work with Interpol, and you get them on the line, and they work with the local authorities, and T-Mobile has the towers, or they partner up with other cell, but you have the warrant, and you want to know where the cell phone originated from and who has that cell phone. And so they can initiate with the local Bahama police to go over and investigate this location. This is where it says it came from. Blank location in the Bahamas. And the person's profile with his phone is blank. But they know the location where it initiated from the tower. Unless it was voice over internet protocol, then they know it from the basically registry from the voice over internet where the computer was. Because the computer has to ping what? It has to ping a, not a tower, but a, what do they call it? A router. So they know this already. So it's going to bounce off the nearest router. So it's going to go through these router and switches. And so they can track it through the router and switches. So they can get the nearest router. So the nearest router, it came from this area and hit this router. Oh, they all go through a router and switch, and they can track it back because they have to. I know this from forensics, computer forensics, so they can get the nearest router that it went through. And then you know it from there, and then, okay, it went through this router, then what Comcast cable company? Is it AT&T? Is it Dish Network? Whose system does it originate from? So you know the router where it first initiated from, the nearest to them, and then you contact the cable company. And they're like, okay, that's Comcast. Router is here, and it's a Comcast client. Comcast, you give them the information, and they look at it, and they tell you, yeah, that house is on the corner of Clybourne or Cermak and Michigan Avenue. And it's the Hilton Hotel. Okay. And then from that, they'll have to know what room it came from. Or did it come from the Hilton lobby? That's why all these are supposed to be secured systems, and only if you're staying in the hotel can you use the computer. So, cute girl at the front desk, but they have to give you a secure password. You can't just go into the Hilton Hotel and use the free Wi-Fi. That's what the problem with Starbucks and that is. At Argo Tea, you had to purchase a thing and get a code and so on, but you need to know your clients and who's using these systems. So no more can it be the Wild Wild West and you just go sit down and log in Nope, you can't use their Wi-Fi. You have to sign up for the Starbucks card, and then you have to give an ID with it. Know your client. So you don't have to use a Starbucks. A lot of times I went into Whole Foods and I used my T-Mobile system, my hotspot, because I had an independent hotspot from my phone, separate from my phone, because truly I had an independent because the service at Whole Foods wasn't good enough for streaming the educational video. It took too much bandwidth they didn't have. It was too slow. It was always buffering. So I would just use my hotspot. So they can use their own thing, but they're identified. But to use your system, they have to be identified. And that means people are not going to be hacking other people's system at Starbucks, because everybody gets their own secure virtual private network. They get their own secured virtual private network. And so they log in through the VPN. And so they get identified. And so if you want to, they can lease a hotspot from T-Mobile, but you got to give your ID. Need a credit card and ID. And the people at the register don't need to take it. It sees the picture. It just goes into the system. The ID goes into the verification like a credit card system. And you slide the driver's license in, or you lay out the passport flat and you slide the passport in. They don't see it. They just see the face. The computer sees you. It sees the picture on there. It validates the passport. It matches it up with the pieces and says, recognition complete. Mr. Jones is approved. No longer does the person at the Hilton Hotel ever see your driver's license. They don't even see your credit card. They don't pick it up. You stick it into the system on your side. They don't touch your ID. They don't touch your credit card. That prevents them from stealing information. The system logs it, but it's blacked out. They have no access to your home address or anything else. They just see Mr. Smith from Georgia. And they can request on the reservation if they want more privacy. Just Mr. Smith. Please don't even give my state. So can you give something unique about you? I love football. So to make it more personable. Hi, Mr. Smith. How you doing? So you love football, huh? Who's your favorite team? Oh, I love the Chicago Bears. Can't believe they won last week. That Caleb Williams finally coming around. Yeah. I didn't see the game, but I caught the recap of the score, and it seems like they did pretty good. They beat the Cowboys pretty well. So, pretty handily. So, we have your stuff completed. Thank you for submitting your ID and credit card into the system. And we appreciate it. Even tap and pay, well, tap and ID, the digital on your state ID and driver's license on your phone. You tap it, and it sends a digital copy over into their system. It's secured on the state server, the state of Illinois, Department of Motor Vehicle. Or you can give the physical. You can tap, and it transfers a credit card. Tap, and it transfers the ID. Same thing with the passport. It's on your phone, or you can put it into the slot and it will scan. You just scan it and boom, boom, the picture pops up in the computer, and they take their passport back and put it. So all their private information is their private information. They don't see their passport number. They don't see their driver's license number. They don't see their home address. We're moving to a system of true privacy. All they know is your number, but when you make the reservation, you can say, call me Oli. Mr. Smith, would you like to go by a nickname? Yes, I'd like to go by a nickname. Smithy or Smithereens. Mr. Smithereens. And it says nickname. He'd like to be called Smithereens. Mr. Smithereens. Hi, Mr. Smithereens. They don't need to know your name. Aaron checked in under another. They can, as long as they're verified, the system knows who they truly are. They don't need to know who they truly are. In that, if they want even further enhanced privacy. So they can do that as well. So it's up to them. But the point is, they can't be going around the grounds, lying to everybody about who they are. Because then that allows them to scam other people. So it's for privacy, and the desk interacts with you and so on and so forth. But I don't know about allowing them to tell everybody else a fake name as well. Because they're not getting, the system knows exactly who you are. But if you can go out, you can just call me Smitty. Is that your real name? No. That's my nickname. Call me like my friend Smiley. Brett, his name was Smiley. My nickname is Smiley. Just call me Smiley. Okay. That's fine. You don't need to lie, and you shouldn't lie. It's my nickname, Smiley, and I go by Smiley. It's nice to meet you, Pete. So, nice to meet you, Smiley. But you tell them, I just go by my nickname. So a pseudonym is a nickname. It's a false name, not yours, but you can have a pseudonym. I had Foley, after Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy's character. They called me Foley. Oli, Ivanhoe, because that's what Scott called me. And many others, because I was the most valiant of person. He considered me the most ethical of ethical people. So he called me Ivanhoe, the most ethical of knights. So Scott considered me incredibly ethical. So, anyways, and then they called me Factoid after CNN because I knew all the facts, nothing but the facts. And so they called me Factoid. And then my other name was The Great What If, because I can go through all the scenarios and think of all the possibilities. So they used to call me The Great What If. So we're running through probabilities. Just ask Mike. They used to ask me, so what do you think of the probabilities will be in these scenarios? And I would give them. So they called me The Great What If. Because people wanted to know, if this happens, that. If this happens, that. And if you do program, it's this and then. So, if this, then that. If and then. If this happens, then you tell the computer to do this. If this happens, so if you're ever writing code, that's how it works. So, and what reason they get caught is because they didn't think of an if. If this happens, then them. But we don't have that in the system. That wasn't one of the probabilities. So the system has a problem. It can't answer the question, and it spins around in this loop because it's searching. If this, then that. If this, then that. If this, then that. We don't have that if. And so it keeps on clocking, looking. It can't find it. That's what artificial intelligence is supposed to do. Saying, if this, then what should I do next? It's not in the system. And then it sends it out to the programmer. The AI kicks it back to the programmer, and it kicks back the solution that it gave. So the programmer can see that it didn't have this in the code and can add it to the code as they enhance the code and get it more perfect. And that's the solution they gave, but the programmer will say, nah, that's not correct. And they can reach out to the client and said, your system made an error in the coding, and we'd like to correct that. And we're going to go ahead and send you a patch. But they do need to reach out, but they have to be verified. And the big thing is about scam artists. And that's why caller ID matters. And coming from a legitimate Microsoft center, where the phone company doesn't give anyone that number at that location. And so they know it's Microsoft Center in Mumbai, India at 20 blank street in unit 25, so on. That's where the tech support is. So they know where it's coming from. And they're like, okay, verified location. And it's the same thing. Caller ID for the phone. Do you know you can do caller ID for the computer? You got voice over internet protocol. They need caller ID for the computer. But when somebody wants to, they know where it's coming from. And so they use caller ID for the computer. And the computer verifies through the software that it's a legitimate Microsoft center. So it pings the center and legitimizes. When they want to log in, it bounces something off that's encrypted in the Microsoft system, and it sends back an encrypted response. And it says verified, not verified. Authenticity cannot be verified. Do not authorize. Or authenticity cannot be verified and cutting connection. But Microsoft can do this. So just like we have caller ID for a phone, we can have caller ID on the computer. And it verifies, and they have an encrypted verification system verifying the source. So no more hackers coming in, because they would have to have their encryption verification system, because they have to send in the right ping that's encrypted to get the right response. And Microsoft can update those systems. When the computer updates, they change the sequence of the encryption. So every time the system updates, it changes the sequence. So it's constantly changing the password. Not on just the person's end, but also at Microsoft. So it's question and answer system. It sends out a question to the software sends back a response. And the response gets updated. Every time they update, the new response via the question is sent out. So it asks a question that doesn't know the question. It just knows a response. It's artificial intelligence with computer. So it says, what is the weather today? And it can be that simple. And it has the computer has hooked up to the weather. And it says it's 30 degrees and snowy. It knows where it is. It sends back 30 degrees and snowy. It asks the question, the security system, artificial intelligence, what is the weather? What is the weather at your location? 30 degrees and snowy. It knows where it's coming from because of caller ID. So it knows the location of the computer that it's dealing with. That's anti-terrorism. So if the computer is in Qatar, they know the computers in Qatar. And it sends out the weather. What is the weather there? And it sends back. And it logs it in. Computer was in Qatar. And it goes in and fixes the system and updates it. So all of this is possible now. So security can be incredible. And ID of the verification, you can't fake who you are and where you're at. And I don't want governments to be able to beat the system. Because if we give governments the ability to hack, they have to get a search warrant. And this is where international things has to go through the UN Security Council, and they have to approve search warrants. So Iran is sanctioned on nuclear missiles. And the Security Council, working through the United Nations, working with Interpol, is tasked to monitor it with the inspectors. And they have authorization to their systems. It's read-only. Remember e-money? You couldn't change anything. It was a read-only system. It could only see it. You can't edit anything. They don't need to edit anything. So they can't do anything to the Iranian system, but they can see everything that's going on. Because part of the agreement signed by the UN, approved by NATO, is they have full access. And they can see everything that's going on in the system. They can't touch anything. It's a read-only situation. And those monitors, like auditors, they're approved. And they have access to their proprietary information. But the UN has to guarantee them that they won't share proprietary information. So all this is available, and that's the essence of the UN Security Council, and it's very vital. And they can issue search warrants, just like the Korean War was a police action. And they issued a police action against North Korea. And that meant against North Korea and China. So the police action was against both. So again, these systems can be done. And that's why we can't do it. Our military has to be above board and has to work legitimately with the international community and work through the international. And with the Security Council, there's Canada on there and so on. And the Security Council, running through the approved system, says that this action cannot be disclosed to Russia or China. That they are not privy to this information. There's certain people on the Security Council, if deemed necessary, can be cut out of the loop. Because Russia invaded Crimea. And so they no longer have access to the information. And now it's only shared between Canada, the United States, and those that are approved on the system, like France, say, as one. And all the rest are blacked out on the Security Council because they violate it. And by doing a violated action that's not approved, it's not a self-defense action, it's an invasion that wasn't for self-defense. Like Saudi Arabia invaded Yemen because Yemen was doing terrorist attacks against Saudi Arabia. So it would be a sanctioned action that Saudi Arabia was legitimately invading Yemen because Yemen was crossing the border and doing terrorist acts against Saudi Arabia. So the UN would sanction Saudi Arabia's invasion of Yemen. And Yemen would be censored in the U.S. Assembly, and they're not part of the Security Council. And so the Security Council works together. But sometimes certain entities in the Security Council have to be cut out. So we have to be a global citizen, and we have to do things right and the United Nations, which is hosted in the United States, so we can secure all lines. Our military should be making sure that's one hell of a secure site. People going in, people going out. And it's up to the U.S. military, from the FBI to the U.S. military to the CIA, securing international feeds, to the NSA, making sure everything going in and going out is secured. We're not tapping it, but everything is following protocol. Everything is properly secured. And everybody coming in has to be cleared and go through, because it's for the best interest of everybody at the UN. When countries don't agree, you don't want anyone carrying anything into the United Nations or attacking a United Nations ambassador, like we have consulates here in Chicago and that. They can strike the Chinese, say they're upset at China, and it's a Taiwanese separatist group. It's better the Albanian separatists that attack French. There's a French embassy here, and the Albanian separatists see an easy target in the United States, and they'll make headline news and everything. So Albania and France had a problem with terrorism with Albania. So that's a better example, but say it's somebody from Taiwan that's really ticked off at China, and they could strike at the Chinese embassy that's here. So again, we got to protect people from each other as well. We can't have them hurting each other. So it's not only from them hurting us, it's from them hurting each other and them doing things legitimately correct and fairly. So we protect us from them, but we protect them from each other. And we expect reciprocity in their countries. When our president goes over, like in China, the military doesn't capture our president. Now, if a war crimes is issued, like the president of Serbia, he got turned over to the International Court of Justice. So the Serbian government turned him over. So he was removed from office, basically impeached, and then he was turned over to the International Court of Justice for prosecution for war crimes. And the Serbian government removed him from office. Their Congress removed him. Their Congress put him in jail, just like the president of Egypt was removed and put in jail, and then would be turned over to the International Court of Justice. They'd be prosecuted for war crimes. It has to be impartial. It doesn't get prosecuted by Egypt. So Saddam should have been turned over to the International Court of Justice and prosecuted for war crimes. So, no turn.